Hi everyone. Thanks for coming to the Teach in Spain webinar today. My name is Laura. I'm going to give you an overview of our programs and then talk a little bit about the application process. At the end, we'll have a question and answer session. So I'm going to try to zoom through this presentation as fast as I can. I think if you didn't already hear, we're going to use the question and answer function in Zoom to field your questions. My colleague Luke is going to be checking those questions, so he'll be typing back, but we'll answer the questions that we don't answer via chat. We'll answer at the end. So first, let's do some quick introductions. My name is Laura. I'm the coordinator for the Teach in Spain team, and I'm located in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Thanks, Laura. My name is Luke. I'm the operations manager for CIEE's Teach Abroad programs. Based in Portland, Maine. I work on our Teach in South Korea programs and have also helped out and supervised just about all of our other programs too. So these days I'm working closely with Laura to help make our Teach in Spain program possible. So you'll be hearing a lot from Laura today, and I'll be working in the background on Q&A, responding to some questions, just with typing as they come in, but also forwarding some to Laura so she can answer them for the whole group. So nice to meet everybody. Thanks for joining, and we look forward to helping to set up your experience in Spain.
Thanks, Luke. And then if you ever have questions, you can reach Luke and myself at teachinspain@ciee.org. We both answer and from that inbox. So you've probably already heard from us before if you sent us emails. All right, so today we're going to go over the programs, what the teaching position entails, COVID, and a lot more details about the program. And again, questions, just please type them in the question and answer function. Please don't use the chat function. We're just going to do question and answer, and we'll get to them at the end. Okay, first, I want to do big overview of the 4 academic year programs. Right now, we're accepting applications for fall 2021. All of these programs will start in about August, September. You'll start teaching in October, and then the program will end at the end of June. These are the 4 programs that we have listed. They're very, very similar. The teaching component is the same across all 4 programs, but there's some variation in how things happen at the beginning of the program and kind of what your relationship is with CIEE. But again, it's the same language assistant program with €1,000 stipend monthly. So what's included in these program fees? First and foremost, you will receive a school placement as a language and culture assistant at a public school in the community of Madrid. CIEE and the government of Madrid will work together to place you all in schools. The big piece of what we'll do before you arrive in Spain is probably visa guidance. The Spain visa is a complicated process, but we'll be here every step of the way. Participants do apply for visas independently, but we'll give you very detailed instructions on how to successfully apply for a visa. We've done this many times, so if you have any questions, you can always contact us. When you're on the program, we will pick you up on arrival day from the airport, and you'll stay at a hotel for the first part of the program. During this time, you'll do orientation activities and get acclimated to life in Spain. During our orientation presentations, we will go over a lot of the logistics that are required of getting ready to live in Spain, such as like setting up a bank account, getting a public transportation card. You'll hear from alumni, and following that orientation stay, you will still have a relationship with our CIEE Madrid staff. So anytime during the whole period that you're in Spain, if you ever have questions, if you ever need help with anything, in the event of emergency, you can reach out to our Madrid staff. They are there to help you, and there's a 24/7 emergency line that you can contact. You'll also receive travel insurance for the whole year that you're in Spain. This travel insurance is pretty comprehensive, so it's going to cover all the things we typically associate with travel insurance, like like lost baggage claims and things like that. But it also covers unexpected medical expenses. So expenses related to illness and injury up to 100,000 US dollars is covered under INEX travel insurance. And then a quick note about orientation, as you can probably see on the slide, orientation will probably be conducted online this fall, and we'll have a little bit more information later on. Teach in Spain Immersion. This is like the biggest time commitment program, I guess. It starts and by that I just mean it starts the earliest. So if you want a chance to learn a little Spanish language and learn about the culture before you get started teaching, this is a great option for you. You'll come to Spain, you'll do your orientation. Following, you'll do your orientation, you'll have a 7-night hotel stay with CIEE. Following that, you'll live with a host family for 2 or 4 weeks. You can choose which. And you'll also be taking Spanish immersion classes for a few hours every day. This is a program that's good for people of all Spanish language abilities. You'll be placed in a class at your level. So even if you're an advanced speaker, you can certainly consider this option. This is a good opportunity because you have a lot of time to kind of get acclimated, learn about Spain, get comfortable before you start teaching. This is the Teach in Spain program. We colloquially call it the regular Teach in Spain program. That's because it's kind of our flagship. It's the program that most people do. So you'll arrive in Spain, you'll do your 7-night hotel stay. There will be no immersion classes. And then following that, during that time that you're staying in the hotel, you'll do a lot of like the startup logistics of living in Spain. So finding housing, setting up banking, and get to know the city a little bit before you start teaching. And then finally, we have the Teach in Spain Basics program. This is a good option for people who have a lot of experience going into teaching abroad. So this is for people who have lived abroad before, preferably in a Spanish-speaking country, who have teaching experience and who have strong Spanish skills. The idea here is that if you're one of these individuals who has more experience, you maybe don't need as much help from CIEE. And so by doing the basics program, instead of the normal 7-night hotel stay, you're only going to have a 2-night hotel stay with CIEE, which doesn't give you a ton of time to get started, but that's okay because you're experienced and you feel that you don't need the same level of support from CIEE to get settled. All right, and like I said, the teaching position is the same across all programs for everyone. Your official title will be Language and Culture Assistant. So this means that you'll be a teaching assistant, part-time teaching assistant. You'll always, when you're in the classroom, you will always work with a local lead teacher. So you'll work together to design lesson plans, you'll work together to deliver the lessons. On the duties over here, those are some ideas of what you might be doing with the kids, maybe conversation practice, maybe special cultural activities. It really varies school to school, teacher to teacher, but it's a collaborative effort between you and your lead teacher. You won't be expected to do classroom management or grading, but you will get a good basis for teaching. These are all public schools, bilingual. They tend to be bilingual primary or secondary schools. So what this means is that even though you'll be teaching in English, you might not be teaching an English class. So if you're in a bilingual school, you might be teaching bilingual math class or bilingual science class. In terms of the workload, it's a 4-day week, usually Monday through Thursday, could be Tuesday to Friday. It's 16 hours of teaching a week, but you will more than likely be working more than 16 hours a week because this doesn't account for lesson prep time. It doesn't account for meetings. If you think about, what your schedule might be, you might have an early morning class and a late afternoon class, which probably means you'll be at school all day, even though you're only working for a few hours as a teacher during that time. Right. And then we have to talk about COVID and how things are going with COVID with regards to this program. I want to give first a big overview of how Spain specifically is managing COVID. It's fairly similar to how a lot of major cities in the US are operating. Masks are required of everyone to wear in public. There are limits on the sizes of social gatherings, usually about 4 to 6 people is the limit. However, life goes on in Madrid. Businesses are open, bars and restaurants are open. They're just open at limited capacity, often at limited business hours. Sometimes Spain will institute a curfew if cases are particularly bad, but the curfew can go up, it can go back, it can go away. There's also sometimes travel restrictions. So if there's an outbreak in a particular district or region of Spain, sometimes the Spanish government will stop travel in and out of that area and then lift the restrictions once the case numbers go down. I guess what's important to note there is this is how things have been since this past summer, and things are changing all the time. Things are changing with the severity of cases and outbreaks and things like that. So I think the specifics will be different in the fall. However, I think this is a good thing to kind of keep in mind. This is what's happening in Spain, and this is kind of what's on the table for this fall. I think the most important thing to note as a participant is that schools are open in person, and people are still going to school and to work. If you'd like more information about this, I would encourage you to check the U.S. Embassy of Spain website. That link had the U.S. Embassy kind of lays out all of the latest updates on COVID restrictions in Spain. I think it's really helpful if you want more info. And then in terms of CIEE, we've had to adjust our program to accommodate the COVID-19 pandemic. We have been operating the Teach in Spain program since September 2020, and we've supported over 400 teachers moving and teaching in Spain. We are confident that we can continue to run it safely for this next year as well. These are some of the adjustments that we've had to make to the program. So for travel, you currently need a negative COVID test to enter Spain. As of today, there are no vaccine requirements. We haven't really heard anything about if this will happen or when it will happen. If anything changes, though, we will find out and you'll be the first to know. During the program, we do not recommend international travel. It's not strictly forbidden by CIEE, but we recommend people stay in Spain for the duration of the year. As far as what we do, the biggest in-person component of this program is orientation. And we have made adjustments to make sure that we can abide by local regulations. So we will probably conduct orientation online via webinar. This is what we've done this past spring and fall. And then when you get to Spain, we'll have orientation activities conducted in small groups, probably outdoors. So the common activity here would be a walking tour. But you will get the same length of hotel stay. So you'll still be in the hotel. We just won't have big mass gatherings of like 100 people at a time. And then our INEX travel insurance, as I mentioned before, does cover medical expenses related to illness. As for schools, all public schools in Madrid reopened this past fall. Schools have the ability to switch to remote or hybrid if there's an outbreak in their school. However, that hasn't happened very much. The vast majority of our language assistants have been teaching in person all year long. And I think that is really encouraging news for us. We feel really good that next fall, it'll be similar. Teachers will be in person for the year. And again, you will have to take another COVID test before you start teaching as well. So you're looking at 2 COVID tests when you first come to Spain. Okay, now let's talk about the schools. So like I said, CIEE and the government of Madrid will place you at a school in the community of Madrid. The community of Madrid is the region including and surrounding Madrid city. So in this, you'll see in this picture, there's a map of the community of Madrid. There's Madrid in the center, and then, but we do placements in the entire region. Those are the borders of the region. Most placements are outside the city center. They tend to be in the surrounding suburbs of Madrid, but they could be even further. It really varies. All of our schools, however, are accessible through public transportation. In our application, we do allow you to put in preferences for your school. So you can say like what age group you'd like to teach. You can say kind of the location that you'd like to be in. But as you can imagine, many people want to be placed in the city center, and we just don't have a lot of placements there. So as you're thinking about this program, make sure that you are committing to the program if you're truly open to being placed anywhere in the community of Madrid. And also, as you're indicating your preferences to us, I highly recommend looking up other areas in the community of Madrid outside the city center that are still interesting to you and that you'd still like to be placed in. And then how we do placements, after you are accepted to the program, if you want to accept your spot on the program, you'll put down a commitment deposit. It's non-refundable, but it goes towards your program fees. And later on, when CIEE and the government of Madrid are ready to make placements, we will place you in order of when you receive your deposit. So the earlier you pay your deposit, the higher priority you'll get for your placement, but it is a non-refundable deposit. So we only want you to put it down if you're ready to commit to the program. This leads me to housing. Housing is not included in this program. So it's not part of the program fees, and you will find housing on your own. The plus of this is that if your school is not in your ideal location, you have total control of where you live in Madrid. So after orientation, you're going to start, and during orientation, you'll take time to look for your own place to live for the year. Most people live in the city center because they like to be near the action. This over here is an example of a past participant's apartment in Madrid. People tend to live with roommates. Before you leave, CIEE will give some general guidance and advice on how to find housing. So we will have we'll recommend websites to use. We'll point you in the direction of some Facebook groups. You can certainly work with other CIEE participants to find housing together. We'll give you general guidance of how to work with landlords. You'll hear from past alumni about their housing search and the place that they lived in. But at the end of the day, it's every participant's individual responsibility to find their own housing. Rent can really vary in Madrid as well. So that is an important thing to keep in mind. Depending on where you live, rent prices can be much more expensive or much cheaper. And it usually takes about 2 weeks for our participants to find their permanent housing. Okay, I mentioned the visa earlier, and now we're going to dive in a little bit more into what that process looks like. For this program, you will use a student visa to work in Spain. So you may have heard in the news that Europe is not allowing US citizens into their countries. This is true of US citizens. They're not issuing tourist visas at this time, but Spain is issuing student visas to US citizens. So you still will be able to get into the country. As it gets closer to once you get accepted and as it gets closer to time to work on the visa, we'll send you a very extensive visa guide and timeline detailing every piece of the visa application, how to do it, and when. And then once you get to Spain, you'll use the visa to enter Spain. Once you're in Spain, you'll apply for a residency card for your time there. Visas are not included in the program fees. The application fee for a visa is $160, but there's a lot of related costs to the visa. There are other documents that you're going to have to procure, and depending on where your consulate is and what their regulations are, you might have to travel to your consulate. And so that's something to keep in mind as you're budgeting. This is kind of an overview of the potential costs that you could have before the program even begins. If you have questions about your consulate, if you're thinking now, like, do I need to travel to my consulate? Certainly look up your consulate on you can certainly look up your consulate on the web. You can also ask us to get an idea of the amount of travel that you might have to do to get to your consulate. Flights are also not included in the program fees. And we also recommend that you have $2,000 to $3,000 saved before even coming to Madrid. This will help you with a lot of the startups costs that you'll need when you start in Madrid, such as like putting down your first month's rent and getting your security deposit. You will get a 1,000 euro monthly stipend, but that won't kick in until after you've completed a month of teaching. Right, you'll have a chance to connect with other participants before you go. We'll invite everyone to join a Facebook group where you can chat. This is a great way to meet potential roommates. We also have an online pre-departure course. It's not really an online class. I would think of it more as a resource library with a lot of good information, but there are forums and platforms in there that you can use to communicate with each other. And of course, you'll have orientation, in-person orientation to actually meet. If you're interested in teaching for more than a year, that is totally an option. You can renew for another year. You can either renew to stay at your school or switch schools in Madrid. And you can also, continue CIEE service for another year. I want to plug our TEFL courses as well. TEFL stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language. Our Teach in Spain program does not require that you have educational credentials or former teaching experience, but we still recommend that you get a TEFL course if you don't already have a teaching credential. I think it's going to help you be a stronger, more confident teacher in the classroom. I think it'll give you really great ideas for lesson planning. And you can add on our TEFL course to your Teach in Spain application at any time. It comes with a $1,000 fee, and it's a total of 150-hour course. If you have questions, please feel free to email our TEFL team at tefl@ciee.org. And finally, the application is coming up. It's due April 1st, but we're reviewing applications on a rolling basis. So you can expect to hear back within 2 weeks of submitting your application. If you haven't already started an app, you can do so at my.ciee.org. If you want to learn more about our Spain programs, please visit that link, that link below, and you can get an overview of all 4 of our Teach in Spain programs. At the bottom, we have some troubleshooting tips for our application. So the thing that probably trips people up the most is our recommendation letter. If your recommender has any issues uploading their recommendation letter to our portal, just have them email their letter to teachinspain@ciee.org, and we'll upload it for you. And then the other note that I want to say is if for people who are currently in college, if you're wondering if you can do this program, you can, as long as you have your bachelor's degree by the time the program starts. So if you're in your final year in college, what you should do, we'll ask for your diploma in your application. What you should do instead of uploading your diploma, because you don't have it, is request a note from your university registrar or academic advisor confirming your expected graduation date and that you're on track to graduate on time. Upload that to your application, and that'll be good enough for us. And then when you do get your diploma, just make sure to email it. This is our contact information. If you want to reach out to me and Luke, that's our email. We also are happy to take phone calls. You can schedule a call at this link as well. I'll leave this up if you want to copy that down, but I think we're ready for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura, for that overview. That should be super helpful for people, and I hope that folks are able to get a lot out of that. Yeah, we do have a good number of questions coming in, so let me see if I can group them together and just pass them to Laura to answer.
Sure.
Let's say, okay, this is a good one to start with. The question is, do people have to find orientation in the 7 days, find housing in the 7 days after they first arrive when they're getting temporary accommodation on the regular program? Is that enough time to find housing? What do people do if they haven't, signed a lease on a place by that time?
Yeah, good question. I think the week-long hotel stay is a good time to find housing. We recommend you you do not actually start the housing search until you get to Spain for a couple of reasons. The biggest is we think it's important to see your apartment in person before you actually sign a lease or put down a deposit. Housing, like the apartment turnover in Madrid is really high. So it's not super common for landlords to hold an apartment for a few weeks. So it actually is a little bit hard to plan ahead. So that being said, because it's common that apartments are coming on and off the market really quickly in Madrid, it is possible to find apartments last minute. It does take about 2 weeks usually for participants to find an apartment. In that, if you can't find an apartment within a week, most people get an Airbnb for like kind of that bridge time in between the hotel stay and your permanent place.
Awesome. How about, we have a question about consulates. How will someone find out which consulate they'll need to use? And what's the timeline for when people apply for a visa?
Yeah, you can only apply for a visa 90 days before the program begins. For most people, that's going to be June at the earliest. And as far as finding your consulate, you can Google this. Your consulate depends on the state in which you hold residency. So it's something that you can Google, but if you have questions, it can get a little confusing. Feel free to email us and we can give you a little bit more clarification on where your consulate is.
Awesome. And Laura, I set you up for that one. I'm going to share a link to the Spain embassy in the chat feature, where folks can sort of see the breakdown of what the jurisdictions are for the different Spanish consulates in the United States. They do ask for ID, so they typically follow someone's driver's license or a current student ID. So just know that that's going to determine which Spanish consulate you will end up working with. Okay, how about, we have a couple questions about the fees and the pricing. So I know this is all the way back at the beginning of your presentation. Do you mind rolling back so people can see that again?
Yeah, no problem.
And someone is asking sort of what's the sort of the standard fee for our program, and then is that included in the immersion fee or is it separate from that?
Yeah, good question. Most people do the regular Teach in Spain program, the $2,200 program. If you do immersion for 2 weeks, it's a little bit more. 4 weeks, it's a little bit more. And then if you want to do Teach in Spain basics and are eligible, it's lower level support, but a lower program fee too.
Great. We've got a couple questions about staying for a second year. Can people renew for a second year without paying a fee to CIEE, or can they engage CIEE's support and guidance services a second time if they want to? And I've got that number, Laura, if you need it, but take it away.
Yeah, you can renew independently, or you can renew with CIEE. It's up to you. So if you want to, if you feel comfortable, you're like, I took this year, I know what I'm doing in Spain, I feel confident now. You can renew by yourself. You won't have CIEE support or the iNext insurance for your second year, but that's perfectly fine with us. You can also pay a program fee of $550, Luke?
Yes, bingo.
$550 to keep up all the CIEE service. So you'll still have the Madrid staff to reach out to who will help you like renew your residency and stuff like that. And you'll have your travel insurance again.
Okay. Here's a question that I will field. When someone stays and teaches for a second year in Madrid, do they have to come back to the States, or could they stay in Madrid and extend their residency? The answer is either. So as people are wrapping up their first year and they've signed up to renew with their second year, they can either stay in Spain over the summer, or if they've got their sort of renewal paperwork lined up before they leave, they could go home for the summer if they wanted and then return for the following fall. Okay. Question about international travel. I'm going to answer this one as well. Does CIEE recommend travel to other countries while teaching in Spain? At this point, we are still recommending that people not make travel plans. COVID, certainly there's a lot of optimism and reason for hope that the world will be opening back up again by this fall or even next spring. But until it does, I think it's best to not make grand plans to be traveling around Europe. And if the situation ends up being a lot more sort of safe and open than that for sort of multiple trips and visiting a bunch of countries, then that's good news. But we're not in a position to issue sort of detailed guidance on what kind of travel restrictions are in place. If you're in Spain and want to go to the Netherlands and Germany and Norway, for example, we're pretty focused on getting people from their home country to Spain. So I'd say start modest with those plans, and then expand them as circumstances allow once you're already there and know what the circumstances are. Okay, question about the TEFL course. I'll hand this to you, Laura. There's a question about does this happen in Spain, and what do those classes look like for the TEFL course?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of up to you. The TEFL course is online, and like I said, it's not a requirement that you have a TEFL certification to do the Teach in Spain program. So I think it makes the most sense to do the course before you start teaching, so you can use the knowledge from the course in the classroom right away. But if you want to wait to start the course until after you've started teaching in Spain, that's certainly possible as well.
Thank you. Okay. This person asks if they have a teaching experience or an education degree, or they've taught abroad before, are there opportunities to get a higher stipend and a higher level of responsibility for our Teach in Spain program?
For Spain, no. The teaching position is the same for every participant. The stipend is the same for every participant. If you want to have a higher level of responsibility in the classroom, can totally understand why that'd be appealing. You could consider our other Teach Abroad programs in China, South Korea, and Thailand. For all of those countries, you would be a full-time teacher, full-time lead teacher.
All right. How about second jobs in Spain while doing this program, Laura? Is that possible? And a related question is how do people usually set up private tutoring opportunities? If not a full second job.
Yeah. Under your student visa, you're not allowed to hold other employment. So you can't be on like a company's payroll. You can't be a bartender. But what is allowed under the visa is private tutoring gigs. And that is really common with our participants. Many of our participants are tutors. They usually just reach out to their school, honestly. Like they ask other teachers at their school for contacts and interested students, and then they tutor on the side. That's a good option. You can set your own prices, set your own schedule, and you are working part-time. So you'll have extra time to work with kids one-on-one.
Okay. We've got a follow-up question related to second jobs. Someone is wondering if we'll have enough time to do an internship with a local business while teaching. I'd say the program is 4 days a week. So you've got the weekend and you've got either Monday or Friday off. I'm not sure if they'd make it a really formal internship in terms of sort of visa permissions, but certainly if you found a business that that was ready to have you help out and do some shadowing just as a volunteer or sort of light duty intern, I think that could work. Okay, question for you, Laura. Letter of recommendation. What would we accept? Who usually writes those letters?
We're generally pretty open about letters of recommendation. It should be from someone who is like a manager, a supervisor, or instructor, and who knows you in some sort of professional or academic capacity. Yeah, we're really open. I think the most important thing is to have someone who knows you well and can speak well to your abilities. Really, I think the only ones that we would reject, well, reject is a strong word. The only ones that we would probably need more information or an additional letter would be if you had, like you got a letter from a friend or from a family member.
Okay, thank you, Laura. We've got a couple questions about the NALCAP program, which is North American Language and Culture Assistant, which is essentially the parent program of what we're talking about here. It's nationwide, offered by the Spanish Ministry of Education. Some people are asking about the sort of different application deadlines or different eligibility requirements. How does our program overlap or interact with that program? And Laura, I think I'll go ahead and tackle this question too. Our program is essentially a subset of that. We're not nationwide like NALCAP is. Our partnership is with the government of the region of Madrid specifically. So we've worked out our own eligibility requirements. There may be opportunities to apply to NALCAP directly, even if you're a year away from earning your bachelor's degree. So our eligibility requirements are not identical with that. We do require a bachelor's completed before people travel. It is possible to apply with NALCAP and the Spanish government and put your preference for Madrid and go into the lottery and theoretically receive placement in Madrid, and people do. So there are going to be NALCAP and CIEE teachers working side by side in the region of Madrid. I think a difference is the level of support that we offer. We've got much better resourced customer service. We're a lot more sort of customer focused, and that's part of what our fee allows. Whereas they're sort of perennially overworked, sort of under-resourced, not able to answer everybody's phone calls or emails. And I think that having an orientation when you first arrive or virtual if COVID requires is a cool way to meet a cohort that's going through the same experience at the same time. And we do offer some more geographic specificity where you can sort of draw a line around the region of Madrid, like Laura described, and know that you're going to be somewhere inside that line which is just not as much true with NowCap. People can apply to both and sort of try to wait and see. Our placement preferences do get handled in the order that people commit to the program by making a deposit. So the longer someone waits, the less emphasis their placement preferences will have for placement within Madrid's borders, the region of Madrid. Yeah, and eventually our program will fill up. We're expecting to send between 600 and 750 participants to Madrid this fall. So it's a big program. There's a lot of room, but there's also a lot of interest. And we can't predict how fast applications are going to come in or how fast people will pay deposits. So we can't sort of put an exact end date on how long it's possible to hold that door open. But we've got a April 1st deadline, so that's a good target to think about for making a decision about how to move forward. Long-winded response. Hopefully that was helpful on the several questions I was trying to answer. Let's see. Okay, we have a question from a science teacher who is wondering if they'll have the opportunity to teach science specifically, as well as choose their age group. What does that look like in terms of opportunities and preferences for age group, Laura?
I'm glad you asked that question. It's awesome that you want to teach bilingual science. Think, as we mentioned, you can preference, I want to be in a bilingual school. You can preference, I want to work with primary or secondary schools students, and certainly we will take all of those requests into account. I think the primary or secondary school is broader than just saying I want to be in a certain district. So hopefully we'd be able to make your request, but we just can't guarantee it.
Awesome. Okay. Question about budgeting. Can people live on 1,000 euros a month in Madrid?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, you can. I think the big piece is probably rent. Depending on if you can keep your rent costs low, most of our participants are between 200 and 250 to 550 a month for rent. Then you can certainly live with 1,000 euros a month. Our past participants have told us it's livable. They can live a good life if they're living frugally. They still have money left over at the end of the month to do kind of fun things. It really helps if you do pick up tutoring jobs to have a little bit of extra money. But all that said, it's not a program where you can be living lavishly with your stipend.
Gotcha. Great. What would you recommend for someone who wants to teach abroad this fall for a single semester or for a shorter duration? Some folks are asking if they have to commit to the full year for Spain for this fall, and what other options CIEE might have.
It's a good question. So for all of the teach abroad programs that have a paid position, it's either 1 or 2 semester commitment. For Spain, if you're starting in the fall, it's a 2 semester commitment. You could consider our Teach in Spain short-term program. That runs from January to June. We'll have it again for this next January and June. And it's 6 months shorter, but it's still a full semester. Any shorter than that, we do have a Teach in Spain volunteer program. That is only 3 months long, but it's a volunteer program. So you won't be receiving a stipend. Certainly a good option if you want a really short-term program, but just something to keep in mind.
All right, these are great questions, folks. Keep them coming. Thank you for sending them our way. How about copies of the presentation or recordings of this webinar? Are those going to be made available?
Yes, we will send out the slides and a recording of this later this week. If you registered, which I think you had to, you'll get an email. And for whatever reason you lose the email or something like that, just check our YouTube. Just Google in YouTube, search CIEE Teach Abroad, and you'll find it on there.
All right, thank you. Someone asks if they sign up for the Teach in Spain Basics program, how long are they going to be in Madrid? What are they looking at for start and end dates?
You'll probably still start in September, probably late September, and then go until the end of June. So again, the teaching commitment is the same across all programs, but you'll just get a little bit later because you have a shorter hotel stay.
Okay. How about public transportation in Madrid? Is that easy to use? Is it efficient? Is it realistic to get around without a car?
Yes, very realistic to get around without a car. Most of our all of our participants use public transportation. It's really good. They have bus, metro, train. So really you can get, especially if you're in the city center, it's very easy to get other places.
Okay. How competitive is the CIEE program? Are most people accepted? What are some things that might disqualify an applicant?
Yeah, the acceptance rate is really high. We really do try to welcome people of all experiences and backgrounds onto the program. We want to give everyone a chance to have this opportunity. It's a rare opportunity to be able to teach abroad for a full year. And we understand if not everyone has that experience, we still want you on the program. I think in terms of eligibility and stuff like that, honestly, the biggest things that disqualify people are just if they don't have like a valid passport or if they don't have their bachelor's degree. But beyond that, if you meet the eligibility requirements, I strongly encourage you to apply. I think the important pieces is just like my advice for like the personal statement is really just to show that you're an enthusiastic, curious, motivated person. In the letter of recommendation, like we said, we really want someone who knows you well and can speak well about you. And beyond that, we're not looking for any sort of specific experience or background.
All right. Let's see. How about do a lot of people do this program with friends or partners? Are there people who do it solo? And how do they connect with other participants to find roommates and look for apartments together?
Yeah, good question. Most people do it solo, but we do have a lot of people who do it with friends and partners. So if you want to do it with a friend or a partner, we totally welcome that. In your placement preferences in your application, you should write down the name of who you're doing the program with, and they should do the same. And so then when we're making school placements, we'll try to place you in schools close to each other. So neither of you have to commute too far. You can find housing kind of in between your two places. If you are doing it alone, in terms of connecting with other participants, I think the best way to do that beforehand is through our Facebook group. This is totally a social space. This is a space for participants. So use it as you'd like, reach out to people, get to know each other. A lot of CIEE participants room with other CIEE people. So this is a good place to get those feelers out and say, I'm interested, post a little bit about yourself, and find roommates that way.
Okay. Okay, so question about blog posts. Laura, do you want to describe, how CIEE hosts participant blogs on our website and who can do that and how?
Yes. So if you go to our website, ciee.org/teach, in the navigation bar at the top, there's a button that says blog. Click on that and you can see blog posts from our current participants. And I highly recommend you read through some of those. I think it's so interesting to read through them. I love hearing about how COVID has, the different ways that they've managed COVID in their classroom and things like that. I think it's super helpful. to hear their perspectives. But if you are interested in being a blogger, after you have been accepted to the program and put down your deposit, there'll be a short application form that you can fill out in your CIEE account. And then once we get closer to the program starting, we'll review those applications and send out blogger credentials to people.
All right. We have a question, say, does submitting your application sooner means you can pay the deposit earlier and be a little further up on the list for placement preferences?
Yes, definitely. So we are reviewing applications on a rolling basis. The sooner you submit your application, the sooner you hear back and get accepted. And then that means the sooner you can put down a deposit. So I strongly recommend you finish your application as soon as you can.
Okay. I think we're coming close to the end of the list for questions. Laura, do you have any topics you wanted to talk some more about or questions you wanted to answer?
I think that's it for me.
Okay. Okay, we have a follow-up question about the blogging opportunity. You know, where do people access that application and at what stage of the process can they find it? If they want to be a blogger?
Sure. After you are accepted to the program and you've put down your deposit, in your CIEE application, a whole new set of tasks is going to appear and open up in your account. And one of those will be to apply to be a CIEE blogger. It's not a super competitive process. To be quite honest, we love hearing from all of our participants. So yeah, it's not a time-consuming application. I would think of it more as like an interest form.
Awesome, thank you. I think we are at last question here, and it's a good one. What kinds of people do this program, and what do they do after they finish?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, like we get such a big range. I think it's probably most common for people to be a few like recently college grads, like either they're just graduated or they've graduated in the last 5 years or so. I think that's pretty common. But we also have I can think of like right now we have career teachers who have taught in the US for many, many years, and they want to teach, but they also want to kind of try something different and new, and they do a year abroad and then they come back to the US. I think a lot of people use this as a career transition program as well, if they want to kind of pivot, but they want to spend a year doing something really meaningful and really impactful. So it's a wide variety of backgrounds, wide variety of life experiences and stories. So I think it'll be cool when you get to meet the other participants in person. But because everyone is coming from a lot of different backgrounds, what people do after the program really varies as well. There are some people who go into teaching after it, for sure. And there's some people who do teaching abroad long-term, like they stay either in Spain or in a different country and teach for a while. Anything you'd want to add, Luke?
No, I think that's a good description of it. We really do have people from all kinds of professions and career tracks and walks of life and ages and stages of life. So yeah, it's a really accessible, cool program for sure. Okay, there's one more question. I'm just going to type a response individually to it. But thank you, Laura, for delivering all this great information and fielding all those questions. Thank you to all of our audience for attending. We hope it's been helpful. Thank you for your interest. We hope to speak to you, as you move forward with our Teach Abroad application, and we do hope that we get the opportunity to help set up a great experience for you in Spain this fall.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Luke, and thanks everyone for joining. It's always really fun to hear from you and see what your questions are.